before the video starts, I think it's really important for me to address some of the allegations that have been made in the past couple of weeks. There's been a lot of talk about this subject, and I just really needed to clear the air. My PR team told me that I shouldn't talk about the situation, but they never said anything about singing. I don't actually know how to play ukulele.
Toxic gossip train, chugging down the tracks of...
While out DMing a boss fight, a player cast a spell that required concentration. A fellow player helpfully put a yellow condition ring labeled concentration over his miniature. At once, the player started loudly complaining that it made his character look gay.
You will pay for your crimes against me and my character! Dude, can you chill out? All I did was put a condition ring on your character. I'm trying to help you, man. Are you kidding me? Look at what you've done. You have made my character gay! What? He's been placed in a circle-shaped thing! He should be in a triangle-shaped thing! This is ridiculous! Why would the shape matter? Ew! Well, yeah, that makes sense. Hey, focus here! And what are you doing? What? You've been corrupted as well. That is also gay. Deniable proof. And you! Stop eating that! What? Don't you know what that means? Seriously, I never really understood the banana thing, you know? I always thought it was because of that stupid costume picture or that one Onision song. I mean, again, I just never made much really understood it. It's best if wait!
After a few seconds of shock, I just told him to shut up. Fortunately, he did, and we just continued the session. Did I kick him from my table? No, it was the last session of the campaign because he and another player had to leave due to scheduling issues. So I was spared the action of actually banning him. But he will never be welcome back. I will always be surprised by the amount of things people consider gay. But you know what? Concentrating on spells, I have to say, that's a new one for me. I've got a horror story from a year ago when I was enrolled in university. It's NSFW, kind of. We still call it the cake incident in my friend group. The local fantasy club had hosted an online event to connect people interested in playing D&D. When I spontaneously offered to run an introductory one-shot, 18 people signed up, which was way more than I was anticipating, but since I didn't want to disappoint anyone, I set up 4 groups and ran the same story for all of them at different dates. I respect the dedication, but at the same time, it's all good to say no to people. There are other opportunities out there, and you need to keep yourself sane. It was going to be a classic Rescue the Princess story, except the baddies were imps and pixies, just wanting to party without the king's guards' interference. Then why kidnap the princess?
Have you figured it out yet? No, I'm still working on it. It's so hard to find a way to keep the king's attention away from our partying. Oh, wait! You have an idea? Indeed I do. We should kidnap the king's daughter. Oh, now that's a good idea. Exactly. There is no better way to keep attention away from us than kidnapping one of the most important people in all the realm. Yep, already on it.
1 hour later.
Fairy scum, you should not have kidnapped the king's daughter. We really thought it was a...
Nice and harmless, but whimsical enough to have some fun roleplay. At least, I thought. While the first walkthrough went off without a hitch, and I met a lovely group of fighters and monks completely obliterating the enemies and bringing this kid home, the second group, mostly tiefling rogues and bards, actually joined the revelry and killed the princess for being obnoxious. Fair enough, she was a bit whiny, but we still had a blast. Both times, the terribly tempting cake made an appearance during the fairy party. It was a decadent chocolate creation in the middle of the buffet and purred things like... Okay, here we go. Touch me, I'm truly delicious, or hey cupcake, lick my frosting, I'm sinfully tasty, or cream or chocolate sauce for you, honey, in a ridiculous French accent that I won't do because it will sound more racist than Emily in Paris. It was a great icebreaker when playing with strangers, cue loads of laughs and hilarious comebacks, infantile humor at its best. And then it all crashed and burned when, a third time around, a neckbeard was hiding in my group. He ticked all the boxes. He showed up late. He had greasy hair and sour onion smell, claimed to be an expert, and played an edgy loner ranger character. I had to repeatedly tell him no. Grimdark II couldn't stab the other player characters to loot them, and I should have probably stopped the game then and there, but this was my first encounter with this kind of player, and I missed all the massive red flags. The proclaimed expert never knew which dice to roll, and whenever I told him, he'd get low-key aggressive in a, yeah, I know, how dare you kind of way. It killed the relaxed atmosphere, so I employed the terribly tempting cake to break the tension. Big mistake. The girl at the table, other than myself, who was playing a shy elven druid called Naria, well, she found that cake first and spent a minute giggling and debating what to do. Then Grimdark arrived, even though his character couldn't have heard the exchange, but he was new, so I just let it slide. He offered to feed her the cake. Weird, but the kicker was how the real-life player kept on ogling the female player's chest the whole while, slimy smirk included. He actually picked up a snack and offered it to her at the table, obviously expecting her to just take it with her. What? Oh, like eat it out of his hands. Is that what you mean? With all these ALO euphemisms, I can never tell when you people are joking or when you people are being serious. Anyway, yeah, that's gross. She looked ready to leave on the spot. At this point, I intervened and explained the difference between in-game and out-of-game again. Things settled, although Neckbeard was sulking. Naria took a slice of cake and left. Grimdark started to aggressively flirt with the cake now, which I shrugged off, though he was now giving me the eyebrow game. He also smacked his lips multiple times in the manner he probably thought was seductive. God, that's awful. He also was leaning into my space as far as he could. Never had I been more thankful for a DM screen. I was honestly in disbelief. Thankfully, Naria and the two other characters had freed the princess in the meantime and were getting ready to leave the fairy party, but Neckbeard wasn't done. He said he wanted to sleep with the cake? But it's a cake, I said, confused. He snapped that he didn't care, and he looked super determined, so I shrugged again and let him roll for it. Me and the other players were flabbergasted at this point, and I just watched the legend unfold. He rolled high, so the session ended with Naria and the two others bringing the princess back to her parents and Grimdark wooing the terribly tempting cake. I refused to describe the latter scene, which angered him, but they left without further incident. Later that same evening, the Neckbeard asked me out via text, since we'd apparently hit it off. I declined, and Neckbeard called me a number of choice words. He wasn't invited again. Only months later, Naria's player told me she'd received the same text after the first session. So, was the cake idea a good one overall? I don't know, but it uncovered the Neckbeard, so there's that. I actually also get in my head sometimes about whether or not something I do in game is a good idea if one person on the internet or something tells me, oh my god, that's such a terrible idea, why would you do that? When in truth, most people don't think it's a terrible idea, it's just the one guy I'm thinking of. Look, one Neckbeard ruining your cake idea doesn't mean your cake idea is actually a bad one. I still think you had something really fun going on with that roleplay. It brought the new players out of their shell, which is a big hurdle when you're playing with new people, so I think it was a really strong idea. Of course, I don't think the cake's the real problem here. The real problem is our Neckbeard friend, and yeah, college clubs have those. It's why I never joined any of them. Not saying that you shouldn't, by the way, but I am saying that if you do join a sort of college organization, just keep your eye out, because, there's some freaks out there, man, let me tell you. I've only found your channel in the past few months, but your videos are basically my go-to when I'm working on minis or any non-narrative stuff for my campaign. Thank you, by the way. So, it's safe to say, I've seen a lot of them. I was wondering if I could share the story or not, as it's not a tabletop role-playing game, but after seeing another Baldur's Gate 3 story, I think this should be okay. I'm a pretty experienced Dungeons & Dragons player with 6 years under my belt, and I've definitely been in other people's horror stories. My player faults are mostly just from when I was new, but as a Dungeon Master, I made godlike NPCs, I was lazy with plots, I didn't read up on combat rules, and basically just did whatever I wanted. I obviously am not proud of how bad I was, but I would not be the same D&D player and DM now if I hadn't been all those bad things first. Experience is the best teacher, in my experience. With all of that experience and the hours upon hours watching your videos, you'd think I'd be good at recognizing red flags in D&D players. Well, as far as I know I am, but when it comes to Baldur's Gate 3, I was eager to put together a BG3 multiplayer group, and I already had one player besides myself on board and was excited for it. Now, let's call him John. Now, I've known John for a good while. We weren't very close friends, but we definitely knew each other and were friends. I wanted at least one more person for the group, and I thought I'd found the perfect person. We'll call them Alice. They seemed immediately excited for the multiplayer group and almost instantly started drafting up a character. Sorry, quick cue. Now that we're talking about drafting up characters and stuff, how many people have used BG3 as an actual D&D analog with like role-playing and everything? Because I just played it like any other role-playing video game, not like a tabletop, but I guess other people did it differently. Anyone else do this? Anyway, this character had grown up an orphan. Okay, that part isn't the most original, but was adopted by a peasant family. They learned to fight to protect this family, but was taken from them when the non-void attacked. After the backstory, the player had also sent me some personality sections, and so came the first red flag. My character is rude, unrelenting, and entirely dismissive of anything or anyone he finds unworthy. He trusts no one and is easily angered by deception. He will resort to blows very quickly in a situation where someone displeases him.
Welcome to party interviews. Tell us a little bit about your character. Yeah, I'm a rogue, so got a lot of skill monkey stuff going on. High damage per round, so, you know, really good against any single target. That's really cool from like a build perspective, but I also want to know a little bit about your backstory. Oh, in terms of backstory stuff, got a lot going on there, you know, tragic, lost family, easy hook for the Dungeon Master. You seem to fit in great. Yeah, you even take into account what the DM needs for the story. That's awesome, man. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about, your personality or something? Oh, by the way, I like hate everybody. What? Yeah, I treat everyone like just absolute crap. Like, the moment I see any sort of person, I just want to like, dude, I don't think it's gonna... I love stealing from the party too. Like, that's like my favorite part of any game. Also, you know, I'm just never gonna like your character. You know, I'm gonna make fun of you all the time. And not in like a fun way, in like a mean way. It's gonna be so much fun for everyone to... Ow, my spleen. I thought this was a likable.
Now, in my defense, I saw this and immediately thought this was a little strange for a multiplayer group. Like, if you want to play brooding and murderous, be my guest. That can actually work well in some circumstances. Think Geralt of Rivia. But when you're playing in a group setting, that is not a good way to make a character. But with all that being said, I didn't say anything about this questionable personality, so I'm not sure I deserve credit there. I was just hoping it wouldn't be too bad, and the personality section was a small overstatement. Oh, how wrong I was. For the game, I create a gnome warlock named Blythe. I meant for her to be taken seriously, but try to soften the roleplay blow by making her an archfey warlock. All of our characters were supposed to have a real roleplay element and be semi-serious, which is something I discussed with the group before, and we all enthusiastically agreed on this. As soon as we get into the game, though, I noticed that Jay's character is named Bingus. That immediately sank some of my hopes for the game, as I felt like it wasn't being taken as seriously as we'd agreed on. Hey, don't underestimate Bingus, right? Bingus will annihilate you in a very serious manner, okay? Look at that face. Fear that face. As our characters meet on the non-Lloyd, Blythe makes a small joke about Alice's character being a monk. It was something along the lines of, what are you gonna do, punch a mind flayer to death? She got her answer quick, as Alice's character probably punched her 5 times, knocking her down to death saves. Jay's character is understandably freaked out by the unarmed murderer standing just feet from them, and says that they need as many allies as they can get. Alice's character uses flurry of blows and a few unarmed strikes to knock Jay's character down as well, seemingly just for being rational? Somehow, we managed to successfully make it off non-Lloyd, but it only gets worse from here. The second we encounter Shadowheart at the tomb door, Alice's character starts a conversation with her, and she apparently says something she didn't like, because in a few seconds, she's laying dead in the sand. The same thing happens with Astarion, Gale, and Lae'zel. Were you playing with Lily Orchard? Because this sounds like how she likes playing Baldur's Gate 3. Seriously, never heard a more brain-dead and joyless review of a brilliant video game. At this point, I'm just done with this. Every time we see any kind of NPC, Alice's character just kills them no matter what. As soon as the session ended, I was planning on never interacting with this person again, and thankfully I didn't have to. Since that miserable experience, I found a much better multiplayer duo, a longtime friend of mine, and bridges weren't burned with Jay, so he's playing my D&D campaign now as a guest, and his character is such a good one. Man, it is absolutely fascinating seeing all of this stuff in a Baldur's Gate 3 game. I've never heard Baldur's Gate 3 played this way, like I said earlier, but again, I'm glad that people can find a great role-playing experience with an amazing video game. Though, I'm glad I kind of missed out on it, because I'd be terrified of an experience like this, ruining what otherwise is an incredible video game. Whether it's BG3 or D&D, it doesn't matter. When you're playing with a group, you're supposed to be in a group dynamic. You're supposed to be working together. That one dude who just goes off on their own and ruins the experience for everyone else. I mean, God, nowadays I'm experiencing that all the time in Helldivers, with people tossing stupid stratagems on top of me and killing my bum. At least there, it's funny. But here, it is not at all in any way. It just sucks. It sucks to play in a group with somebody who doesn't seem to give a crap about anyone else at the table, or, in this case, in the multiplayer server. However, you know, friendships are born from strife like this, at least sometimes. I wouldn't recommend it, but hey, it happens. And here, it happened with your buddy Jay, so that's good. So I'm openly asexual. My boyfriend very much understands this and all my boundaries and feelings. I am also open about it to most people that I meet online. My boyfriend and I play D&D and other TTRPGs with some friends online in a big Discord server that hosts lots of different campaigns and one-shots. One day, our Dungeon Master posted an interest check on the server for a one-shot she was running. My boyfriend and I decided to join, since we wanted to be players together after mostly me being in games he runs himself. And we also were decently familiar with DM and thought it would be a good time. Knowing this DM's games tend to be more lighthearted, I decided to play a bit of a jokey character, Bowser, like from Mario Bros, a turtle in the way of a dragon monk. The one-shot was themed around the deck of many No! Why? Stop! I mean, it is a one-shot. But still, man, you know how I feel about this thing. Anyway, my Bowser had joined the party in search of the star card, as in the star card from the deck. A few days before the one-shot, the DM private messaged me about my character. I hadn't revealed that I was literally playing Bowser yet, so I was sort of vague about it. She asked about his motivations, and I told her he was motivated by love, since he wants to win the affections of a certain beautiful woman. The Dungeon Master then asks about my boundaries when it came to romantic or sexual content, since she knew I was asexual. I explained I love romance and can appreciate an attractive body and don't mind talking about things like feminine features and whatnot, but I get uncomfortable when things get very explicit. The Dungeon Master told me that if anything she did made me uncomfortable, I could tell her in the game. I didn't think much of it, since she said that most of her questions were just to get to know me better. But then, game day rolls in. Our party meet up and get sent on a quest to retrieve various cards from the deck of many things. I convince everyone to go to the star card first, and through some weird investigation rolls and questions, we discover that that card has been hidden somewhere in Bowser's mind. How it got there, or why it's there, is never really explained. Oh, sorry, man, the MacGuffin's in your head. I guess we just gotta, you know, just, it's okay, man, it'll be over soon. It'll be over. Nonetheless, Bowser wills the rest of the party into his mind, which is a lot less bloody and violent, so that's good. Anyway, we encounter a more evil version of Bowser surrounded by a pile of coin mimics and kill it. Okay, awesome, it's going well so far. Then, Dungeon Master asks me to describe the woman Bowser is in love with. I relent and reveal the character I'm playing, and that the woman is basically Princess Peach. So Dungeon Master describes the princess appearing and being all seductive and flirty. I describe Bowser as being incredibly awkward and uncomfortable, not out of embarrassment, but because this version of his true love is nothing like how he actually sees her. He's a gentleman and a noble after all. But Dungeon Master doesn't listen, instead escalating things further by putting a big picture on the digital battle map. What was this picture, you ask? Oh, it's just some very, very explicit Princess Peach art. I continue protesting, and at this point my boyfriend is trying to back me up in any way he can, since he can tell how uncomfortable I, the player, am getting. DM adds more pictures, filling the screen with lewd and suggestive images of this video game character, some of which are even AI generated. What was the research process? Effort went into this!
Hey man, how's D&D prep going? Yep, I think I'm pretty much done with everything. Really excited for the session. That's awesome, that's awesome. What was...
FBI, open up!
Oh god! Oh my god, it's the FBI! It must have been from what I was Googling. What were you Googling? It was Princess Peach porn for my D&D game. Dude, what? Why?
I keep protesting, saying this isn't accurate to what's inside my character's head. It's not how I'm playing him. This is not who he is. But she continues with saying that I have no choice in what his subconscious desires, choosing to depict him as some horny creepo rather than anything I had described him to be. Lewd Princess Peaches fill the screen as she describes these seductive apparitions appearing around our characters. The kicker? She describes us noticing that the card we're looking for is
I've been trying. I'm really trying. I've been trying to get back on the mic for like 2 minutes now. I have no words though. I can only laugh. This girl really knew the truth, man. Magic stored in the titties.
To portray this specific character, she pulls up the most intimate image yet of the princess turned around and showing her lady bits. It's on a part of the battle map that I can't see since I've scrolled to the top of it, and my boyfriend warns me, don't scroll down, knowing that I wouldn't like what I'd see if I did. At this point, I'm nearly having an anxiety attack because what gives me the anxiety is feeling powerless in this situation. I love how your boyfriend is treating all this Princess Peach nonsense like a Lovecraftian horror that you're trying to. It's amazing. I love it. As I look upon the weirwood street that I once loved so much, where I frolicked and laughed and cried and loved, I now know I can never return to that life. Never return from the things that I have seen, witnessed, beheld. There is no path forward for me now, not with what dwells in my mind. The shadow that hangs upon the trees, that mystery of mysteries. In a desperate attempt to get this encounter over with, I described Bowser diving in and attempting to just grab the card. And thank heavens, we were ejected from my character's mindscape after that. At that point in the session, I was still embarrassed, I was uncomfortable, but we continued on anyway because I didn't want to bring the game to a halt. Next, we search for another card, encountering an Avatar of Death that can summon shadows as a legendary action that continuously drains strength from our mostly strength-based party, as Dungeon Master boasts about the encounter having been AI generated. And we could tell, because no human would put any party up against that kind of encounter. Don't talk to my D&D player. As the fight goes on, we realize how badly we're losing, and decide to end the session there to perhaps pick up later. As you might guess, we never picked it back up. I left that session feeling defeated, and powerless, and embarrassed. I took the day to collect my thoughts. My boyfriend explained the issues to the Dungeon Master, and eventually I contributed to the conversation as well. I told her that I didn't enjoy my player choices being completely taken out of my hands, and all of my thoughts and opinions being completely misinterpreted, as she could have been way more receptive to my protest in the moment. She retorted by saying that she knew what she was doing since she read some papers on psychology, and that she thought my protests were just me joking around, since playful complaining is something I do in my boyfriend's game every once in a while. But I tried to explain to her that this was very different, and that she can't go into an idea like this about exploring a character's mind when you don't have a solid understanding of that character. And I told her that even though she discussed with me the kind of content that the game would entail, I came out of that conversation expecting something far tamer than what was presented. She told me I should have private messaged her if I was uncomfortable, even though she had said earlier that if I could tell her in the session, which I did multiple times and she didn't stop. She said that she also felt triggered at being misunderstood in her intentions. Okay, bestie, a bit hypocritical, but whatever. Less hypocrisy and more guilt. All in all, she was not exactly receptive to the critiques, and my boyfriend and I still reminisce on that crap show of a session and begin laughing and raging a bit simultaneously. I wonder if this woman does the thing that some people do with me where they mistake being asexual with being an incel, because they're definitely not the same thing in any way, shape, or form. I don't know why this woman had an obsession with turning your character into a massive creep for Princess Peach. Maybe she has a thing for Princess Peach, which, you know what, apparently is a common thing. I've seen it with some of my lesbian buddies, and as you guys know, the tavern is filled with my personal lesbian army, so you won't see any judgment from me. But this is not appropriate, and her response to you getting upset about this, appropriately upset in my mind, well, not a great response either. I mean, her response was basically to guilt trip you, to claim it was your fault for not conveying that you were uncomfortable, even though you said out loud you were uncomfortable multiple times, which, yeah, ignoring that is not a good thing at all. Glad you and your boy could get away from this person. I was playing an elven wizard named Alatar, who's a runaway from a noble family known for their offspring becoming royal wizards for other royal and noble families. My ex, who we'll call Ariel, is a noble woman who's a warrior, skilled with the blade, but thirsting for more thrill in her life. The Dungeon Master, who's a friend of my ex, I didn't know the guy enough to call him a friend, but my entire mood soured after this experience. There were two other party members, an elven ranger and a human rogue, but they were not really part of the problem with this campaign, so they never really burned into my memory, especially since I never did another campaign with them again. Unfortunately, to get in depth with what turned out to be a horror story for me, I'd have to explain the details about my wizard. Visually, he is a copper-skinned high elf with red hair. Yep, the visuals matter, I promise. He's from a noble family who focus on raising their sons as students, his childhood home being more of an academy he was raised in. He couldn't even address his parents as his parents, but as the headmaster and headmistress. Him and his twin brother being the last direct descendants, he was the only one of the two with magical talent, as his brother was born with no magical capabilities. That meant he would take up the academy, but with his brother being cursed transformed into a dragonborn, he ran away to search for higher magic to reverse his curse, so his family wouldn't lock him in the attic for all his life. This campaign was homebrewed by the Dungeon Master. The party is gathered by an elder wizard who heard rumors about some sort of ancient buried magic school resurfacing to the world and wanted to send us to the school to see the cause of what brought it back to the surface. This fit perfectly for my wizard who was on a magic journey to improve his skills and release the curse on his brother. The Dungeon Master seemed to have other plans though. After approving my character and getting us into the campaign while introducing our characters, he decided to make my wizard Ariel's slave? Which is his exact wording. My shock must have been visible on my face. Your wizard had Gale's backstory, and then it was just transformed into Astarion's backstory. Slightly more traumatizing. He even went so far as to change his backstory so that my family sold me off to Ariel's family, and she was forced to bring him for protection. Despite this, he was forced to have magic-suppressing shackles on his wrists. You could imagine how upset I was, but considering A seemed unbothered, even happy, and Dungeon Master is Ariel's friend, I bit my tongue about it. We were pretty late in the game at this point, and we were sneaking around the headmaster's office due to a golem. The school's haywire security was run about. Unfortunately, I totally screwed up a stealth roll, and caused our party to be detected, since my cape was caught in a chair. Say it with me, guys.
Knock it!
Helldivers are the exception. In a scramble to escape, Ariel failed a roll 2, causing the golem to swing at her with the intent to crush her. After some rolls between her and the Dungeon Master, I suppose a saving throw failed because she was crushed into bloody fine red paste. I was also asked to do a roll, and having a decent one, I think I landed on like a 13, the keys for the magic suppressing shackles happened to fly into my hands. With our full capabilities now, the rest of us were able to fight the golem off, and by the end, we were all unsure what to do with the red blood puddle that was my wizard's owner. And yeah, that's how the DM worded it. The ranger suggested that we just figured out why the school returned and leave, but the Dungeon Master suddenly cuts in. If Alatar doesn't eventually return without his master, he'll be accused of killing her and will have a bounty placed on his head. This upset me greatly. I am quick to overthink, assuming I'm never going to be able to use Alatar again, since the Dungeon Master is just going to make my life impossible. Going over the spell books in the headmaster's office, I managed to find some sort of condensed time spell and rolled high enough that I just reversed the damage of the blood puddle, reviving Ariel's character. Ariel is so moved by my loyalty that she allowed my wizard to be free and no longer be her slave, and that she would lie to her family that I died protecting her.
In recognition of your service to me, bringing me back to life from death, because a higher power literally forced me to, I honor you, my friend, with basic human rights.
Wow,
I'm happy to call
thanks.
you a normal
You
member
shouldn't
of
have.
society. You must be so incredibly honored by this blessing. I am truly an incredibly generous person. You must love me so incredibly much.
really,
I myself,
actually.
my heart
Can I go
burst
home
into
now?
this kind-
After the rogue found the headmaster's diary that explained the story of the school in depth, we went back to the wizard and got our cut of the money. The Dungeon Master tried to not even reward my wizard with any of the rewards, splitting the money in 3 instead of 4. At least Ariel had her character split her reward with mine, and the rogue was nice enough to give him some of the magic books he initially intended to resell. I never did D&D with that party again, although I did DM a bit after. Although I do miss the rogue and ranger. Since I moved away and broke up with Ariel, I haven't really played D&D since then, basically silently quitting after everything. But as of recent, my new and awesome girlfriend got into a campaign and motivated me to at least bring my wizard back, so hopefully I can give the hobby another shot after so many years. I wish you and your girlfriend all the best. Yeah, this kind of plot line is not the play, man. Slavery, get this, is bad. And playing it out in your game, I mean, it could work. If the party and DM are comfortable with that subject matter, great. But if you're playing as a slaver, and the party want to kill you over it, can't blame them too much. More importantly than the overall concept, though, is the fact that it was forced onto this particular character. Being made into a slave against your entire character story is ridiculous. Just tearing up a perfectly good backstory for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Don't do this. Let a player's story be the player's story. You can iterate on it as the dungeon master, but changing it like this, especially in this specific manner, is just gonna piss people off. And that's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our Q and Play series, where we answer your questions in a rambling, unscripted format while playing some video games. It's linked in the cards. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment Asexual, not Incel. Let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email down in the description down below. Send your stories our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.